So good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Costa, Planning and Zoning. I'm here tonight with Mark Brands. There's 5 of us here in the audience and 10 participants. Mark is from Howard and Sage. He is our land use attorney and represents zoning and planning, and he is here tonight to do his version of what's called the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay,
You ready?
take it away. I'm ready. All right, well, I thank all of you for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. It will be taped, so if you need to see it again, that's great. I'll apologize in advance that some of these aren't great photos, but that sometimes there was bad weather or bad conditions, but they were taken for what they show and not necessarily for how pretty they are. The quick background, I tell my lawyer friends I used to have an honest job as a town planner. I was planner in Glastonbury for about almost 6 years, and we adopted design review standards in Glastonbury. We were one of the first towns in the state to do it. It has served us well, and Glastonbury has been tough on design, and yet the town has developed. Developers always say that, oh, you know, if you're too tough, they'll go elsewhere. Well, you know something, they don't. They go where the market is. That's what really happens. These pictures are ones I've taken for decades now. Some of them were slides converted to digital. Again, some of them may not be great pictures. But the idea here is to sort of give you a sense of what's possible, and as much as anything else, what you should be looking for, I guess, both in terms of the big picture and in terms of detailing. Let me start, by the way, you can stop me at any time with questions. That's fine. There are a lot of slides, so I don't want to rush through them. I also don't want you falling asleep during them. So if I'm going too fast, tell me I'm going too fast. If I'm going too slow, tell me to pick it up. I certainly will. And I think the questions we want to start out with are, you know, what is it about your town that is distinctive and that people like about it? And how do you protect those elements and enhance them? One of the things I always say to people is, if you know a real estate broker, ask the real estate broker, when someone from out of state is considering buying a house in your town, what street does the broker drive them down to say, like in this case, this is Old Saybrook, this is the town of Old Saybrook, and what street or streets do they avoid? And every broker can tell you that. Every broker knows when they get somebody being transferred by, you know, Aetna or Pfizer or whatever, they'll tell you when I'm in Essex or when I'm whatever town I'm in, this is the street, you know, this is this town, this is what this town is like. And I will drive over there, wherever there is. And that's value. I mean, that's what creates property values, which gives you your tax base. It's also what gives people a sense that this is a unique place, that this is someplace they would like to live and work and shop, and that it's not just like everywhere else. And no one of you have been to, you know, large parts of the country, it's all the same stuff. I remember years ago, my wife and I, in a moment of temporary insanity, took a vacation to Las Vegas. And I don't know what I was expecting, but one of the things that appalled me was there was a shopping mall there that had Banana Republic and, you know, all the same stuff. And I thought, why would someone fly 2,000 miles? You know, that's all. I have all that at West Farms if I cared. You know, there's nothing Southwest here. There's nothing native. There's nothing original. Those kinds of blow-on opportunities really are not good economically or any other way. So we want to talk about what is it about your town or any town. We have a rich legacy in Connecticut of architecture, traditional architecture, colonial, yes, but also many other styles, Victorian, Georgian. These buildings give a sense of place, a sense of how your town is unique in some other place. The detailing, fenestration, windows, columns, also the natural landscape. We have hills. We're not like Kansas. We have brooks and lakes. Again, the view of places like that give people a sense of where they are and a sense of the beauty of this area. We have our seasons. Each area has its beauty and its seasons. We have our traditions. This is, by the way, the used to be the Grange Fair in Glastonbury. It ended, it stopped in about 1975, 76. The regiment disbanded, the fife and drum corps disbanded. They couldn't get enough people interested in it. That is not a good thing for a town. And then you have corporate America arriving in your community. This was on Main Street, Glastonbury. It's now long gone. But when I moved there in 1971, this was on Main Street, a town, a street with more historic buildings than any other street in America. And this is what we got. So we're going to look at some options. What can we look for? What do we want to do? And we'll start with retail development. CVS. This is Route 6 in Bristol. It's in a big strip mall. Couple things that are not so bad here. You'll notice the planters along the walkway. I think those were added later, and they are nice. The other thing that was interesting to me was the brick. Notice the brick pedestrian walkway that carries you down an island, across the aisle, and into the portico there. I think that was added later as part of some other kind of renewal. But other than that, it's pretty flat. There's another view of that. Again, you see the Woolworths. I'm guessing this was from the 50s and had some renovations done. They did add the planters in the parking lot, which match the ones on the walkway. It helps a bit, get some trees in the parking lot, a little bit of an upgrade. This no longer even exists. It's on Route 66 in Marlborough. They tried for Colonial. It was a little shopping area, grocery store, and some offices. One of the buildings is still there. And but you can see it kind of falls short. It's sort of a phony Colonial, shutters and brick and a semi-peak roof. But a lot of people say, well, the towns want Colonial. Well, maybe, not necessarily if this is your definition of Colonial. Of course, you all know this one. This is Hall's Road in Old Lyme, which I think is a very successful approach to what is still a strip mall. The advantage of it, of course, is the way they brought the roof line up, the columns, good landscaping, a good solid landscape strip along the main street, so that you get some of that. It's not that Colonial like that. It certainly is a traditional look that really looks good there and also functions well. Picture that one. This is in Vermont, and this is a different approach. It's not Colonial or traditional necessarily, but the barn. I don't know if it was really a barn that was converted. I think it was probably built new, but I saw from the silo there may really have been a barn here. But this the standing seam metal roof, the barn board. It's one of the things you hear a lot from developers, and I should tell you, I represent developers too. All right, so I'm not anti-development, and my own clients will tell me if you can get away with the cheap version, do it. But if they want the good one, then we can do that too. But this is not expensive construction, and yet it does pick up that Vermont, the barn tradition rather than a Colonial sense. Not much in the way of landscaping, lighting not bad. This is a little bit also same area. Note the vast, look at the cars, you can tell this is taken, vast expanse of pavement. The clock tower was a nice idea, the lighting's nice, that is a cedar shake roof, nice touch, nice the way, it's very contemporary, and yet still gives you a little bit of traditional roof lines and the gable line and some of the dormers, but landscaping, nothing. This is in Marlborough on Route 66. And this is the back side of the Marlborough Tavern. And again, not a Colonial, but uses the clap with the white clapboard, some peak roof with the shingles, that sort of carriage house look to the arches. And that was the idea, by the way. The Marlborough Tavern is a true Colonial building. The idea was that this was to be like the carriage house wing on the back of it. And I think in that case, it does work. I have tons of pictures from Manchester, Vermont. It is a landscaper, planner, architect's haven. Lot of obviously they have really strict standards there. This is a large retail building. It's a full 2-story building. It's built into the slope. So it has parking lots at upper and lower levels, so no need for elevators. Very clever use of the space. They're trying to get that idea of the carriage house again. And again, this is really contemporary building. I don't think anyone would say it was colonial building, but yet you have some of the features of traditional architecture. The divided windows, the clapboard, the gables, that sort of carriage house feature at the top. Also in Manchester, now this is a little different though. From what I can tell, this was like an old Grand Union or other 50s grocery store. But so they were starting in the box. That's what they had to begin with. And they basically added this new facade to it. This, again, you see the cedar shingles, the cedar siding, and then across the right side, they added that row of gables, that little corner feature. So they tried to kind of dress that up as they redid it. Also Manchester, Vermont, brand new building. And again, not colonial, more maybe Georgian, I guess I defer to others. But again, a traditional look in a modern retail facility. Also Manchester, what's nice about this is a big hardware store. And it's plumbing supplies, and it's not just like an Ace Hardware, it's a big place. And again, they sort of use that barn idea with the cupolas across the top. This is also Manchester. It's a veterinary hospital, I'm pretty sure. Yes, it says medical building. I think it was a vet. And again, sort of that in the round barn look. Siding, the divided windows. Also Manchester, what they did is they kept the original buildings along the street frontage, so liner buildings, which I know you've talked about here in Old Saybrook. And the new development is to the rear. There's an inn, a motel to the rear. Also Manchester, and again, this was a renovation to a 50s building where they added the tower, they added the covered portico. But you can see that the original building was kind of a box. So they were able to dress up a bit. At South Conway, New Hampshire, what I liked about this was just the use of the siding. It's very simple. And the window really sort of makes it pop. That pair of big round top windows that just give it, I think a nice look. Burlington, Connecticut. This is relatively new. I mean, maybe 5 years old. The trees are small. When they grow, it'll look a lot better. But again, this sort of reminds you of the Halls Road approach. Traditional siding, traditional materials, and yet not a fully colonial sort of look. This is Bowen's Wharf in Newport, Rhode Island. Some of these buildings are very historic. Some of them are brand new, but they've been blended in a way that you really can't tell which are which. And they preserve that instead of knocking it all down. But right across the street almost, this is also Newport. The building to the left is the old sailors' home. And to the right, of course, is modern. But you see, they tried to pick up those arched windows, right? It's a modern approach. The windows are not divided. The roof is clearly a mansard roof. And yet, again, they tried to harmonize with what was there. This is same area in Newport. This is in Manchester. It's a small shopping center. Again, sort of a residential look to it. Buildings broken up by different materials, different colors, different roof lines, instead of that big flat thing you saw at the beginning. This is in Ipswich, Massachusetts. Very similar approach. A lot of small buildings, each one has little shops in it. Not much in the way of landscaping. They did leave that one big tree. This I liked. I don't know where this was, out Route 44, and I don't know where it was. But what I liked here was you had the original building in the front, and then they added 3 new buildings, 3 new office buildings to the rear, but you can see they picked up the same form of what was in the front and stepped them back. And I think this was a very, first of all, I like the fact that they preserved the building in the front, and then that they used it as sort of their template for what's in the rear. And again, what's in the rear is, you wouldn't think that was old. One look, and you can tell it's modern construction, and yet it still gives you that reference to what's in the front. This is Suffield, Connecticut. What's nice about this, it was built into a slope. So it's an A and P, and 2 levels, but each level has a parking lot at ground level. So again, the stairs are there if you want to use them, but they didn't flatten the site. They built the building into the topography. I'll tell you briefly that Glastonbury went through this on a CVS right about the time that CVS was coming to Old Saybrook. And they were taking a site that was quite steeply sloped. They were going to excavate, I think, 70,000 cubic yards of material. And they were going to have a pair of 12 to 14 foot concrete retaining walls so that they could have a flat parking lot and a flat CVS on a steeply sloped site. Better to build the building to the site, not make the site match the building. Another view of that development in Suffield. Bad weather, but Hyamsport, Massachusetts, a super Stop and Shop. This is one of the earliest that I could see of this newer look for Stop and Shops. Again, the siding, the divided windows, clearly a mansard, but better than you usually get, and good landscaping on this one, good islands. I like the fact that they included the gables along the roof. Obviously, it's not a 2-story building, but at least you do get a sense of the traditional roof line. This is in Avon, and this is I put more of a Williamsburg look, but again, this building is built into the slope. So each of the 2 levels has at-grade parking. So again, you have handicapped access at both levels, and there's that canopy that you see is a restaurant. This actually overlooks the Farmington River, and it's a beautiful location. I like the way they combined the brick and just sort of the blank stucco. I like the sort of 4-chimney look on the roof. And the landscaping is also pretty good. It looks better now because this was taken a number of years ago. Also, this is another view of that same building. You can see the 2-story feature here, but you can't, but on the back, it's that 2nd floor is at grade as well. This is the upper level, that same building. So people can park here and walk. So you can have retail at both levels. People will say, you can't have 2nd floor retail. Well, this is 2nd floor retail, but you can still park in front of the store just by following the grade. Canton, also along Route 44. Here they try to reflect some of the Collinsville Mill architecture, very close to Collinsville. So you have, again, the sort of again, picking up on local architectural vocabulary, local architectural forms and features. This is also nearby. This is a restaurant along Route 44. This is more of a colonial look. CVS, this is, I didn't put where this is, but I'm almost sure that it is in Farmington, Massachusetts. Farmington, Connecticut, it's Massachusetts. It'll come to and oh, this is Framingham. Sorry, this one is. I forget what this one is. Wait a minute, let me go back. There we go. I know what that one is. This is Framingham, Mass. Pretty bad in my book, anyway. Now, Main Street, East Hartford. What I look about this one is, try to remember this image. This is Main Street, East Hartford. This is a 1/4 mile away in Glastonbury, the Walgreens that was just completed a few years ago. And you compare, they're a 1/4 mile apart. And the only difference is the town line. The only difference is that East Hartford was willing to allow this, and Glastonbury wasn't. Go another few hundred feet, and that's the Glastonbury CVS, also located about a 1/4 mile from the first one that you saw. This was design number 14. I was on the plans review committee when this was brought in Glastonbury. 13 prior designs that the commission had to say no over and over and over again until they finally got to this. You can say no 100 times. Once you say yes, you're going to look at it for the rest of your life. So you just have to keep that in mind. This is another view of that CVS. One of the things we required them to have was a doorway on Main Street. We wanted there to be a pedestrian access. I think the fencing was very well done here. The one thing we did miss on this particular one was the windows on that second floor do not light up at night. So at night they look fake. We learned that lesson. Now we make them illuminate them at night. So it actually looks like somebody is up there. Another thing about that, let me just back up. Okay, to the left of this shot is this. Yeah, thank you. This is a building that CVS wanted to demolish. They said they needed it for parking. They in fact did not. The commission refused to allow them to demolish it. They left it vacant for years. They kept trying to demolish it. The town continued to refuse to allow them to do that. And finally, they fixed it up into a very nice office building. But they had to be pretty tough with that. Another CVS in Glastonbury on New London Turnpike, not as nice as the one on Main Street, not bad. Certainly better than the one you saw earlier. Another view of that one. Stone wall is nice, good landscaping. The landscape architect did all the landscaping for these. This is a fairly new Walgreens at the corner of 83 and 94 in Glastonbury. Not quite as nice as the one on Main Street, but still a very nice treatment. This was a part of town that used to have a lot of quarries. So the town insisted on having a lot of stone used in these buildings. And so you can see they have the stone water table along the base, and then that prominent forward feature has it completely in stone. Again, has some of the gables, some of that traditional look of siding, divided windows, but certainly a more contemporary approach. The drive-through. One of the things, a lot of times the drive-throughs are ugly, the backs are ugly. Here you see they've carried that traditional treatment around all four sides of the building, including the drive-through. So it also has that gable look that it should have. This was a CVS on Long Island. Unfortunately, I can't tell exactly where I was. I know I was somewhere on the South Fork of Long Island, but I thought this was also a nice example of CVS. A lot of good landscaping, brick. Again, not your standard CVS that you saw at the beginning. This is in the Florida Keys. And I thought this was nice because again, it picks up your image of Key West or something along that line, the pale yellow coloring, again, metal roof, some nice features to it. This is a CVS in Saratoga Springs, New York. And one of the things you'll notice, it is a two-story building. There's a half a story down. So there's a retail on the ground, on the half story down. And then there's the CVS itself at a sort of up, like a half story up. Saratoga Springs has this brick look. It's not a colonial town. It was developed later than that. And so they've modified their look to match Saratoga Springs. There's another view of that. You can see how that goes a half story down, then half story up. This is, I'm pretty sure that this is North Conway in New Hampshire. And what I liked here was it's a very plain building. I know it's hard to see in the back, but it's not much of a building. But they did this very elaborate pergola feature in the front. And that's what catches your eye. You don't really look at what's behind it, which is a lot of glass and some metal. But you see this, it's up front, it's white, it really see it. This is back in Glastonbury. The building to the left is a genuine colonial building. It's the Gideon Wells House. It was the home of Lincoln's Secretary of the Navy. The one to the right is completely contemporary. And yet you see they've picked up, again, the materials, the roof lines, the fenestration, clearly a contemporary building. No one would confuse that as an old building. And yet it still harmonizes with the historical building that's next to it. This is in Bristol, Rhode Island, and what I really wanted was to picture the Ace Hardware store, but I like the fencing, so I tried to get on both in one shot. And nice treatment there, again, sort of a traditional look. You can see that it is mostly a flat roof, but still a nice treatment. Vernon, Connecticut, the Dollar General. I was telling Chris at lunch, I just finished up in New Hartford. We just had 3 applications in a row for Dollar General. They started out with something kind of like this. It was denied. They came back with something a little better. It was denied. They appealed, frivolous appeal. They could never have won. While that appeal was pending, they brought in a 3rd application. I can't photograph it. It's not built yet, but it's going to look a lot different from this. All right, a little better. East Hampton, just down the road. Just down the road is another Dollar General. This is what they ended up like application 2 in New Hartford. Flat roof, the sort of fake mansard around the sides. The one that's being built in New Hartford, by the way, is completely peak roof, totally peak roof, not mansard, completely peak roof. This was on Long Island, concerned not Dollar General, but Family Dollar. But this is you can see it's still flat roofed. But again, Long Island is more Victorian. It's you don't see as much colonial there. And they've picked up the use of the brick, the sort of eyebrow porticos on the windows. This is in Michigan, New Traverse Bay. Not a great Home Depot because it was pouring that day. What I liked was the use of the gables and the standing seam roof. The landscaping is fair, but at least you had some peak roof elements better than your typical Home Depot. Banks and office buildings. Some of the things that people forget about. Okay, this is an honest to God ATM. Who in the world is supposed to use it? One of these, this is in Fairfield, Connecticut, and the thing that I like, all the houses on this is commercially zoned. All the houses on the street have been converted to office space, and some of them have actually been linked. So they're like 2 houses are really one large office building. And yet at the end of the street, you have this 4-story box. It doesn't harmonize with anything. I think that's really too bad when they allow that to happen, because other people did preserve these buildings and did try to match the styles.
Mark, that would be 4 stories in France, right? I count 5.
5 is 1, 2, yeah, 5-story. You're right. 5-story and flat roof and just as boxes you can get. What I liked here, this is Eastern Connecticut. It's out Route 44, but I don't know what town. At least I don't remember what town. Obviously old, it's CBT. But they took an existing colonial house, converted it into a bank. I like how they did the drive-through. It has that. It's like a carriage house. This is a feature you would commonly see in colonial buildings. That sort of wing where the carriages were kept, and yet it's the drive-through. It harmonized with the building. Works very well. Unfortunately, this building is gone now, but this used to be Burritt Bank in Glastonbury. It was an existing house in redevelopment that was scheduled for demolition. But Burritt Bank desperately wanted to get a foot into the town center, so they bought the building, renovated it as a temporary measure. Customers liked it so much that they kept it for 20 years plus. It wasn't demolished long ago. It worked very well for them. And again, the drive-through using that same roof pitch. Restaurants, fast food, slow food. This Hardee's in Glastonbury was the first Hardee's in America. It did not have an orange roof. I will tell you, when I was town planner, we had the first McDonald's in Glastonbury with no golden arches. And one day in my office, a very nice young man walked into my office and said to me, I understand there's a Hardee's coming in. I said, yes. He said, you recall, he said, I'm the regional vice president for McDonald's. You recall you wouldn't let us have golden arches. I said, that's correct. He said, I know there's a Hardee's coming in. I said, yes. He said, are they going to have an orange roof? I said, no. He said, thank you very much. And he left. That was all. He had driven down just to ask me that one question. If we can't have our golden arches, they can't have their orange roof. And they didn't. And I'll tell you one more thing about this. The president of Hardee's had a picture of Hardee's in his office above his desk. And the Hardee's screamed bloody murder, by the way. I mean, they just cried a river about not being able to have their orange roof and so on. And the rep came back afterwards and said to me, the president of Hardee's took down the picture behind his desk and put up a picture of this one. McDonald's in Colchester. There's your, the golden arches, the whole thing, all right? This is in southern Vermont. Notice the bay window feature. So a little better. You don't have the golden arches, those roof things, those things, okay, they light up. So it's not great, but cedar shaped roof, siding, could be better. This is the one that's now gone in Glastonbury. Nice landscaping. Again, this was the one that had no golden arches. But let's keep going. Saratoga Springs, New York, McDonald's. Remember I told you Saratoga is more usually brick architecture. It's not colonial. I think this is a spectacularly successful design for McDonald's. Again, for a town that's not necessarily colonial, it's more of a Georgian, or I don't know what style you'd call it. Very subdued sign. One of the things I always say to people is when they want a big sign, the bigger the better. And I always say to them, show me a study that correlates the volume of business done with the square footage of the sign, and we'll talk about it. And no one can produce such a study because it does not exist. Right? People know it's a McDonald's, they find it. The sign could be hundreds of square feet, or it can be this. They know where it is. Notice, by the way, how they did the outdoor dining area, sort of pergola look. The McDonald's in Manchester, Vermont. Told you to take a lot of pictures there. Cedar shake, the white columns, brick. I think a nice treatment. Dunkin' Donuts in Exeter, Rhode Island. I thought this was a very nice feature. Very simple, siding, divided windows. Certainly suits Rhode Island architecture. Small sign. Everybody knows it's a Dunkin' Donuts. This used to be Friendly's in Main Street, Glastonbury. Again, sort of definitely a colonial look, or Williamsburg. It's more of a Williamsburg look. Burger King in southern Vermont. It's different. At least it's better than your typical one. I don't know if I love it, but I did like the. I'm sure it's a very bright interior. I thought that was nice. This is a restaurant in Manchester, Vermont. There was an old house that they converted and then expanded. When they expanded it, they retained the features of that original house and the siding, the roof pitch. This is new restaurant on Route 44 in Avon. You have that sort of center chimney look. I think they need to put a center chimney on it, which they didn't. But nice use of siding, some the gable look, some nice use of traditional materials and forms. I should have combined. This is that same restaurant in Vermont. I'll have to move these around. Manchester, Connecticut, Domino's. I thought pretty good for freestanding Domino's. You see the roof brackets? Now the buildings around this are Victorian. So they picked up that roof bracket look, the siding. I don't personally like the brick very much, but again, it could be worse. Good landscaping. They kept some of the trees that were there initially and added some. Is another view. So they preserved that one, that I'm pretty sure that's a dogwood that's right there to the left. They built around it and kept it. Car dealerships. This is in Avon and of course also Westbrook, Connecticut. I will tell you in Westbrook, Lawrenson Toyota got a variance for the entire set of design guidelines for the town of Westbrook. A variance for every single element of design guidelines. Their hardship was that Toyota demanded that they build this and nothing else. My attitude was different about that. Gas stations and convenience stores. Okay, here's a Cumberland Farms on Nantucket. You don't see many Cumberland Farms like that. It's probably, I'm sure most of you know, the entire island of Nantucket is a historic district. So they have very strict architectural controls. Notice small windows. No big plate glass windows, nice porch, nice roof line. This is a gas station at the corner of Hebron Avenue and Manchester Road in Glastonbury. Arco, they used to, Atlantic Ridgefield, they used to build these sort of colonial style gas stations. Not bad. Main Street, Glastonbury, better. This is a Shell. This is when I was town planner. We got them to build something that they'd never built anything like this ever before. New one in Griswold, Connecticut, convenience store and gas station and car wash. I think this is getting a little better. Good roof line, using siding, using brick. The sign is kind of large, but at least it's all there. You don't have multiple signs, one for the convenience store, and one for the gas, one for the price signs. At least it's all unified, and you'll notice the sign picks up the architecture of the canopy and the building. They all tie together. They were designed together and they match. This has been torn down, unfortunately, but this was Sturbridge, Mass. A really nice canopy. It's all peg, post, and beam, a cedar shake roof. I was told once the fire code doesn't allow gas stations to have cedar shake. That's just a flat out lie. They most certainly do. They occur anywhere you want them. The canopy itself is wood. It's genuine wood. Good view of the canopy. This is next to that is the truck stop. I think an unusually attractive truck stop, and that is still there. This is also Sturbridge. This is another view of that truck stop. Nice truck stop. York, Maine. What I liked about it, you can see it's an old garage. They kind of put a new facade on. Works pretty well. Again, it was pouring rain. I managed to do that. What I liked here was the back. All the garage bays and all the crud is in the rear. So at the front, you don't have the garage bays. You have a nice facade, and yet the garage stuff is in the back. Another Manchester, this is Manchester, Vermont. This is a service station and convenience store. Again, these guys have very high standards, beautiful roof line, brick building, great fenestration, wonderful entrance. There's the side, actually, that's not the same one. There's this, I think there's another one in Manchester, but the garage stuff is off to the right. So again, it's to the rear, it's not dominating. There we go, there's a close-up of the maintenance part, the repair shop part. That it's never too late is what I call this. Adaptive reuse facelifts, and some of these are different. Newport, Rhode Island. This was an old like Grand Union thing, your typical 50s strip mall. They put a whole new facade on it, added the landscaping, put this stone wall on to shield the parking lot, and a very attractive sign. So just a facelift on an existing building. Another view of that. I don't like the lighting in the parking lot. The lighting on the street is nice. This is Harbor Springs, Michigan. This used to be a generating plant, a huge coal-fired generating plant. So they had the harbor there and the flat ground around it. And this is a very contemporary approach, and yet I think a really nice traditional look, almost like the Grand Hotels, you know, that you can think of at Block Island, or that era of the Grand Hotels. This is also Harbor Springs, all new construction, but nice, nice roof lines, nice use of arches. And again, Harbor Springs, some single family, some multifamily, and all new construction in Harbor Springs. Now, gas station in, wait a minute, no, it's all right, sorry about that. All right, there was a really ugly gas station here, and I thought I had a slide of it, and it's probably out of place. They wanted to expand into a convenience store. The town of Hebron basically made them tear it down and build this instead. Absolutely spectacular job, I think. Look at the columns on the canopy and the end view on the canopy with that little round window feature, and the fencing. Very, very nice job. Freeport, Maine, McDonald's. McDonald's was trying to get into Freeport for years. They could not do it. So they finally bought this beautiful house and converted it into a McDonald's, doing some additions to it. Brick walks. This is it's never too late. This is Herolstadt in the state of Baden-Württemberg in Germany. Herolstadt is a brand new town. And the provincial government decided they needed a new town in this location with shopping, community center, and so they built a brand new town. But note, the same tile roof that's used throughout this area, the white stucco, which is predominant in that part of Germany, actually most of Germany. Another view of Herolstadt. Again, brand new, but picking up the architectural features of the traditional architecture around it. They don't allow suburban sprawl in Germany. Unfortunately, this mill is gone in Baltic, Connecticut. I had always hoped that it could be renovated to something, but it caught fire and most of it's destroyed. There's a small part of it left. Whereas in Rockville, they were able to convert this into elderly housing, one of the old textile mills, and very nicely done. This is Addison Road in Glastonbury. This was a Belden mill and was turned into apartments. Very successful. The roof that you see in the front is covered parking. They're not garages, just covered like carports, group carports. This used to be a tannery, Roser's Tannery in Glastonbury, and the tannery converted to apartments. To the right is a restaurant and what was part of the machine shop. Rooms I like here. Take a good look at that guardrail. They needed a guardrail in front to keep people from driving into the restaurant, but it's that nice wood beam look. There's a close-up of that, so it's steel backed, but you don't see the steel, you just see the wood. This is Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Again, a mill. It was along the river, renovated. This is mostly for office space, artist studios. It's not residential, it's mostly office and things of that kind. Brightleaf Square, this is in Durham, North Carolina. These are all the old tobacco rolling mills. I actually went to school in Durham. And one of the things I did not get a picture of, at least here, was you have all these tobacco mills turned into shops, galleries, restaurants. But as the entrance, it says no smoking allowed here, which I enjoyed. Another view of that. So they did some additions, they created foyers, these buildings. This is the interior of one of the buildings. I like how they kept the skylights, they kept the high roof line. This is in Tallinn, Estonia, which I realize I misspelled. These are old warehouses from the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s. They wanted to preserve them, but they also wanted to do some additional development. So you can see they didn't try to ape the old buildings. They just did totally contemporary on top. I think it was an interesting approach. Back to Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. They took this existing house. And you see apartment building, and they redid the ground floor for retail. You can see how the brick is new at the ground level, the arches, that was redone. But it allowed it to function better as retail. And yet they kept the building, they preserved the building. Oh, this is what that gas station looked like before, when I showed you in Hebron. This is what they replaced it with. Have to change the order on that. This is the same building compared to what you saw before. Oh, there it is. Okay, there we are. So that's what's there now. So we got rid of that. We got this. Signs. Colchester, Connecticut. You can't read any of these. There's such a chaos of signs. Everyone's trying to be bigger and taller and brighter and whatever, but you can't read any of them. And everybody thinks that they're advertising their business. In fact, they're not advertising any of them. This is in Rockville. What I like about this is there's a single sign band. Everybody gets their sign on the building. They're all in the same place. You know where to look for them. This is it was a Rite Aid. I think now it's a Walgreens, maybe in Jewett City. Again, you can't read any of this stuff. One of the things that happens when you allow a lot of glass on the building, you don't mean to, but you're allowing signs. One of the things that when I was planner, I used to do is I demanded tinted glass in all picture windows, so they couldn't do this. They could do it, you just couldn't see them. This is what used to be the Wawa in Glastonbury. Again, the window filled with signs, none of which you could read anyway. It just make a busy, ugly look. As compared to this is Simsbury, okay, Batik. You can read it. It's easy to find. This is you park, and this is the shop you're looking for. This identifies the development of which that store was a part. Look how small that is. People find it. It's been in business for years. Saratoga Springs. All the signage is at sort of street level, at ground level. Canopy signs, a mix of different things, but again, pedestrian level signs. They're not trying to identify it as you drive by. You're not gonna be able to see any of these signs as you drive by. This is a place called Stiefalten in Germany. You don't need to speak German to know what kind of shop is this. Frisur. It's a barbershop, beauty salon. This is Rothenburg in Germany. There's a very familiar restaurant here. Can anybody see it? Anybody see the restaurant? Golden Arches. There. It's a McDonald's.
Oh, man.
There's the gold M. Okay, just the gold M. That's it. That's their only sign. Believe me, people find it. Oops, sorry. Also in Rothenburg. This was used to be a First National and a Woolworths, and the big facelift was done on this in I guess 70s. Again, I like the sign band. You know where to look for it. They all have their own style of sign. They're all pin letters, so they're all internally illuminated letters, not box signs. And really took an ugly thing and made it quite nice. Colchester, Connecticut, historic district. The bank took this house, added on. Now here we go. This is Norwich. This is one of my favorites, Norwich. The speed limit on this street is about 45. Most people go 50 or 55. You can't read any of these signs, not one of them. They would have been so much better off just identifying the name of the shopping center and advertise we're in the such and such mall, rather than trying to list every tenant. It simply doesn't work. This is compared, this is in Southern Vermont. Village Square, right? To the right, they list everybody who's in there. You can see that directory sign. But notice the Village Square is what faces the street. So when you're looking for a shop in Village Square, you pull in, and if you're looking now for the individual store, you can see it on the directory side. Of course, interstate. This is one of the things I liked in Saratoga Springs. There are shops on the side streets, and the city itself has put up directories at each corner that tell you who's on the main street and then who's on the side streets. But this is on the sidewalk. This is not for motorists. So you park, and then you're looking for your store. You want to see what's there. They each get a sign as a directory. I like this in Farming and the Exchange. You can easily see what this is. It's the Exchange. They didn't try to list every shop in the Exchange. They just, you know where it is, you pull in, and then you look to see where you're going. One of the things they did, at least initially, each of the segments of this building was a different color scheme. So like you knew that you were in the gray or the blue or whatever it might be. Entry, okay? That's what you need. You don't try to list everything that's in there. Just tell them where to walk in. And then you see off to the right, see the in there, okay? That's telling you for each of the colors of the building segments who's there. But you're out of your car by now. You can't read any kind of directory from your car. This is Colchester. Was a grocery store. I think now it's a CVS. I like the gables and the siding, the landscaping is non-existent, of course. Signs. This, folks, is a sign. That truck has never moved in years. It's always there. You know, Saybrook, your sign regulations do define things that don't move as signs, even if they have wheels on them. Here is the First Amendment. Okay, this used to be, this sign is now gone. But get us out of the United Nations. Okay, we have to be careful with First Amendment signs. It's a knife in itself. This is back to that Petromax in Griswold. Again, what I liked about it was that all the information is in one place rather than a bunch of signs. This is back in Western Rhode Island. That's at St. Dunkin' Donuts. Again, the sign, Dunkin' Donuts. They don't try to give you, drive through, buy a cup. Just keep it simple, keep it easy. And sometimes a sense of humor is nice inside. This is in Stonegate Village, right in front of the church. I just love that. Industrial uses. This is Commerce Street, Glastonbury. Your standard concrete block thing. A little better, also Commerce Street. You see the back is the Butler building, the metal, but at least the front office portion is a little better. This is right about the time when Glastonbury adopted design review. So these buildings all predate design review. This one doesn't. This was a tennis club on Oak Street. And by the way, the reason why it's such a bad photo with all the leaves in the front is because the front is so heavily landscaped. This is the only spot I could get a picture there, I think. The idea here was it would be like a barn. It is metal, it is a metal building. It uses the barn roof line, the barn color, metal roof, and I think it was a successful, certainly better than what you saw, certainly better than that. A lumber yard in Manchester, Vermont. All the lumber is on, you're looking at the back side, beyond that is a courtyard, and all the lumber is accessible from that interior courtyard. So you don't have a view of all the lumber stacked up. This is an industrial park in Manchester. Again, I like the roof line. State wood. What's nice of this Eastern Boulevard, I think it's a nice front, again, flat roof. It's clearly an industrial building, clearly a pre-engineered building. But where's that? Something happened with that slide. This is another building on Sequin Drive. This is what I liked about this. This is the front of the building, but I don't know why the slide looks so bad. Nice front, but all the construction, this is construction company. All the construction stuff is in the back. So from the street, you don't see it. You have to drive in, and only then you see the stuff in the back. Very well screened. Also Sequin Drive, very simple, but not too bad. There's old Saybrook. I thought this was a very good industrial building. Again, it is a metal building, but it carries for it that sort of carriage house look. And again, it's a Duke sign. Also in Saybrook. Because again, the working end is at the back. Necessary evils. Parking lot, right? How do you do a parking lot in Nantucket? The answer is you put a wall around it so you can't see the cars as you walk by, and you landscape it heavily. That is the parking lot to the right. It just, you don't see the cars unless you're really looking for them. This was Main Street Glastonbury, where it was Friendly's. They paved all around this tree, and of course, it died. The commission made them preserve the tree, but they forgot to require pervious surfaces around it, so it was just gone in a few years. Whereas here in Simsbury, you see they kept the islands larger, so these trees can live, they will make it. Also in Simsbury, decent sized tree wells so that the roots aren't compacted. Another approach, also Simsbury. This is a Talcott Apartments in Farmington. This was designed by McAllister and Bishop. And what they did was they took the trees they cut down and made tree wells for the trees that they are preserving. Eventually, those trees those Lincoln log things will rot out. And by then, the tree's roots will have adapted to a different grade and the tree will live. Also, they use stone the same way. I don't know if those will live, we'll see. Rockville, Maryland, here the islands use bluestone to allow infiltration of water, so the trees will live. Back to Simsbury, again, an island is large enough that that tree can actually live. This is Fort Lauderdale. I like this. The tree that you're looking at, that black that you're seeing is not bituminous. It's some sort of a porous material that allows water to pass through, but you can walk on it. It's firm enough to walk on. And they have these little carve outs as you walk along the brick sidewalk. Close up of that, again, it looks like bituminous. It is not. It is a porous material, and you can see the drain. So water from the sidewalk goes down into the root system. Florence Grizzle Museum, close to home. The use of what's called grass fault. Try to keep some infiltration and yet allow some grass to grow up. The cars will cut that corner a little bit, but you don't need to pave the whole thing. Another view of that. This is the parking garage for what used to be Glastonbury Bank and Trust. Interesting story to this. The bank itself is brick and a very colonial in appearance. When the bank was proposing the parking garage, some members of the board of directors wanted the parking garage be faced in brick. Others felt it was a waste of money. And they were deadlocked on the issue. So the board voted that if the Planning and Zoning Commission asked for brick, they would do brick. But if the town didn't ask, they wouldn't. And as you can see, it's not brick. And that is literally true. A member of the board told me that after it was built. That he was one of the people who was fighting for brick. He said, I was sure you would demand brick. I was sure of it. And then we didn't. So it could have been brick, literally, for the asking. I showed you that street in Fairfield before with the big 5-story building. Most houses can rent office. This is a public parking garage that they built there. And brick face, nice openings, nicely landscaped, certainly not as big an eyesore as the 5-story office building you saw before on the very same street. Saratoga Springs parking deck. What's interesting about this is because of the slopes that you really can't tell here, each level of this parking deck is at grade. There's an entrance at each grade, so they don't waste space on ramps. You don't pass from one level to the other. This is a Honfleur, France, near the mouth of the Seine River. Lovely. Look how ancient this is. You know, hundreds of years old. It's beautiful walk. You know, piazza and the 2-story carousel. But what you are looking at is the roof of a parking garage, an underground parking garage. And there's the elevator that takes you down into the garage. This is also on the Seine, another town, underground parking. So they preserved, they didn't tear down all these buildings, and make a parking lot. They put it underground. I'm pretty sure this is in Monaco. They ran underground parking and highway right under this old fort. Canary Islands, I forget which one. You have this broad brick. This is where the cruise ships tie up. And the second floor is a motel. The first floor is a museum, and then this broad plaza. But the broad plaza is in fact also a parking garage. So they used that for their parking without having a surface level parking area. CLP facility could be better. This was the exchange and farming in the loading dock. It's fully shielded, both sound wise and also visually. This is the Stop and Shop in Glastonbury. You are looking now at the loading area, the loading dock of the Stop and Shop, beautifully concealed. This is the loading area for the Walgreens in Glastonbury. Again, very nicely screened. Trash enclosure area on Route 44 in Avon. Not your typical chain link, a nice looking fence to enclose the dumpster area. This is Talcott Apartments. So often when apartments are designed, no one thinks about where the trash barrels are going. This lady was kind enough to pose for me and show me. I'm sure she thought it was crazy to take a picture of putting her garbage away. But integrated into the design. I love this too, utility boxes. Look where they put it. You've got this weird driveway split by a utility box. Nobody thought about it. It's also back to Talcott Apartments. They used the existing stone for steps, and you'll see the patio is slices of log. See, they're cut like salami in the foreground. Here. Okay. They just cut log slices. Eventually they'll rot away, but meanwhile they'll look really nice, and they use the wood. This is a telephone switching station on Main Street, Glastonbury, designed to blend in with a very historic street. Bayou, France, bollards to keep cars off the sidewalk, but each one of them has a solar panel in it. So they're illuminated, and yet with no wiring. A nice bollard illuminates the sidewalk, low level. Copenhagen, Denmark. This traditional light has been converted to LED. So you get the efficiency of the LED light, but the look of the traditional look. This was a low impact design parking area, paved aisle, brick for infiltration on the parking spaces. Notice the lines are done by different color brick. Handicapped space, you can tell what that is. right? This is the state capitol, pervious concrete walkway. And also the state capitol, several pervious surfaces. A low impact design water garden, a rain garden that you can see as a demo area at the Capitol. There's a brochure about it. Cape Hatteras in North Carolina. Again, the aisles are paved, the spaces are pervious. And by the way, the reason why the aisles are paved, by 2 minutes, is because when cars pull into a space, as you turn the wheel, it will tear up brick. All right, so that's why you've seen a couple of these. The aisle is paved by 2 minutes. The spaces, however, you've made your turn by then, so you're not going to rip them up. This is Girondet in France, the home of Claude Monet. Again, paved aisle, the spaces are grass, but notice that the big problem with grass parking is nobody knows what the lines are. So what they did here is they set bricks into a base so you can still see the lines and you can mow right over it. I thought that was kind of clever. There's a close-up of that. This is that Dunkin' Donuts in Exeter. What I liked about it was the detention pond. It's and if you didn't know this was a detention pond, you would not know. It's just a grassy area. Looks very nice in the foreground of the building. This beautiful picnic area that you see, and there, the playground, that entire thing is a detention pond in Palm Springs. It is designed to fill with water, allow it to infiltrate and avoid flooding. So they after a flood, they pressure wash the playground equipment, the park benches, and you're back in business. Nobody's going picnicking, you're going to the playground in the middle of a rainstorm. This is Mackinac Island, Michigan. It is an electric distribution center, electric distribution facility, okay? Beautifully disguised, that you wouldn't know what it was. That was the idea, of course. What I hear is Saratoga Springs with a shared curb cut. The gas station and the retail stores share a curb cut. They share some parking. There's no reason why they all have to have their own curb cut. Public spaces and buildings. The essential New England town green. A contemporary approach in Brunswick, Maine. Not traditional, very contemporary, very nice, I think. Here's Colchester with their little gazebo thing. North Adams, Massachusetts. I like the island here, down the middle of the road, traffic calming, nice lighting. This is the new ferry terminal at Vineyard Haven, beautifully designed to pick up that Cape Cod, Vineyard Haven look, cedar-shaped roof, the siding, gables, chimney look. Fire station in Colchester, Connecticut, just off the town green. Unbelievable to me that a town would do that. One of 2 fire stations in Glastonbury that are the same, I think a much better approach. Another very nice approach in southern Vermont, an emergency center. It's ambulance, firehouse, and the town offices all combined. It's an inexpensive building, but a nice Vermont look. This is in Mystic, the firehouse there. I think a very nice approach. A lot of brick is used in the Mystic area. This picks that up. There's also it's actually concrete, but it has the look of brownstone. It's a brown concrete block. Bolton, Connecticut, fire station. Absolutely beautiful fire station. Shows some pride in their community. This is another one of my absolute favorites. This is Camden, Maine. It's their library. It seemed odd to me. 2 things struck me odd about it. First, that it's such a big town, because Camden is pretty big now. It has such a tiny little library. The other thing was that there were lots of people coming and going. There were cars coming in and out. I couldn't believe all those people could possibly fit into this little tiny library. And I noticed off to the right, which unfortunately I couldn't get all in one picture. Off to the right, there's this little belvedere, little canopy. So being curious, I walked over and looked at it. And I looked down and it's like a well. And the bottom of the well was glass. And I was looking at the central circulation desk of the library, because in fact, it's all underground. This is the real entrance to the library on the back. So that whole lawn, you see the whole, you see the belvedere there? You see that feature now? Right? That's that right there. Okay. That's over the main circulation desk. So so from the street, it all looks like grass. In fact, it is their new library that they were able to build without ruining that. Nantucket High School. Again, the whole island is historic district, so they had to use cedar shake. This is Smith Middle School in Glastonbury. What's really nice about this is that they kept beautiful features across the front. The building goes back to the rear is more blank, but not only do you not see it, you can't see it because the grade is such that it's the land was rising, so they flattened that out. So those tall walls to the rear aren't visible. Close up of that, the eyebrow window, columns. Look at that. Winston-Salem, North Carolina, they landscaped all their overpasses. They hated, Winston-Salem was furious when the interstate ran right through the center of town. And deciding to make lemonade out of lemons, the community groups got together and landscaped all these areas. They also planted climbing red roses along the chain link fences that line the interstate. Today, it is a solid double row of red roses all the way through Winston-Salem. What does it say? Yeah, you better really fast. This is a crosswalk on Route 72. Look at the length of those crosswalks. No island. Yeah, you'd have to really sprint to get across that. But fortunately, if you're handicapped, you can just push the light, okay, for the light, except you can't get to it because they put a guardrail in your way. I love this too. This is also Bristol, okay? Something about that sidewalk that's really not going to be good. You better not be texting on your phone while you're walking down that sidewalk because you can walk right into the steel post holding up that stupid sign. I don't know where this is, but somebody designed it. This is a town hall in Lisbon, Connecticut. Nice building. St. Dunstan Roman Catholic Church in Glastonbury used some of the features of stone that are found in the area. Hebron, Connecticut, a new Roman Catholic church, very much with that New England look. A synagogue in Manchester, it's sort of the barn look. Residential, no, this is not photoshopped. That is a real driveway, obviously not for New England. Cromwell, they painted this brick now, but certainly not a New England look. This is in Glastonbury, Hill Farms Apartments, a very man-started, a very dated look. Rockport, Mass, I think a much better approach to multifamily, picking up that sort of center chimney colonial look. You know, the chimneys aren't in the center, that would have been a good idea. Nice decks, there's a close-up of that. Nice shed dormers. Again, Farmington, this is Talcott Apartments again. They preserved a lot of the grade, natural wood. Charlevoix, Michigan, apartment complex, 3+ stories, 4 stories, but I think a nice look. This is senior housing on Block Island. And again, I think really picks up that Block Island look, the cedar shake, the white pergola, the roof line. Very, very nice look. Another scene of that. This is in Manchester, Vermont, multifamily. Now this is one street in Manchester, Connecticut. This is the traditional 2-family. Each unit has a porch, separate entrance, nice roof line, nice look. Directly across the street, 2-family, absolutely hideous. There's no reason they couldn't have built more of these. Instead, they went with that. Close up.
Do we have any questions?
Questions anywhere? Yeah. And am I running too long? You can get it.
So we're a little bit over an hour. I was just thinking, I don't know if anybody had any questions so far,
The Canary Islands.
or questions in general.
Yeah. I'll just deal with to the left is the traditional look, to the right is modern, that they picked up from those features, traditional buildings. Hotels, Manchester, Vermont, in at Willow Pond, they kept the original house and then added a new motel building to the rear. Also Vermont. Okay, this is in at Willow Pond. Each of these are 2-story motel buildings, but each one is at grade. You park at grade, so they're built into the hillside. Newport, Rhode Island. This picks up the look of Rhode Island beautifully. Notice how the building comes right to the street. The parking is in the interior courtyard. This is in a floodplain, so they couldn't have units on the ground floor anyway. So they used it for parking, but again, you're looking at the back side of that. Another look at that inner courtyard, main entrance, pool. This is Manchester, Vermont, a fairly new hotel. Yeah, it picks up some of the traditional features, some bricks, some siding. Very subdued sign. If you're looking for the Hampton Inn and Suites, you'll find it. That's it. Point is, there's a lot of ways to slice it. You can do a lot of different things. You do have the legal authority to require good design. They're willing to do it. They will, if you make them, you hold their feet to the fire. Like I told you that CBS was design number 14. And I told you about Dollar General, where there's 3 separate applications. You can say no a lot of times, you say yes, you're stuck with it.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Ed Armstrong. So I'll just a simple one. Like, we have a couple mini malls in town, and they all have exterior, lights, interior lit signage.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm thinking about is we've established a precedent. So how do we get to the point where we can get less lit, interior lit signs, if that becomes a goal, and go back to, like, I noticed you had several shopping malls, I'll call them, or mini malls, where they just had the title of the mall.
Right.
And then maybe little signs for pedestrians to see what's in there. How do you transition from the precedent we have to an ideal situation for these mini malls?
Ends on the ARB.
A few answers to that. First of all, when you have a change of use or an expansion, the entire building comes in, the entire building and site come in for review. So you do have the opportunity at that point. Obviously, you're not going to be able to make somebody tear something down, but you can require them to upgrade. And in some of those Glastonbury examples, a couple of those buildings that are in these slides had several successive facelifts and site lifts. Each time it's because they wanted something new, an expansion or a change, and we got some incremental upgrade each time. One of the things that was interesting about the Griswold Mall one, which you won't remember which one that is, but was that the landlord told us they were having trouble renting space in the building because it was so dated and so unattractive. So a smart property owner, landowner, realizes that if you're going to keep your rents up and if you're going to keep your occupancy up, you need to keep up with what's around you. So number one is, when they come in for a change, you can require upgrades. Second, you use the word precedent twice. I remember when I guess it was Home Depot came into Old Saybrook. The zoning regulations said that you have to be in harmony with the architectural character, of the community and so on. So Home Depot brought in pictures of all the ugliest buildings they could possibly find on the turnpike. And my response to that was, you're showing us why we need to do better. The fact that we made mistakes in the past does not condemn us to keep on making them over and over and over again. So yeah, there was a time when we didn't have the standards we do now. We didn't have the regulations. We didn't have the reviews, but we have them now.
Yep.
And so no, you don't get to pick our worst mistakes and condemn us to keep doing it forever. We don't have to do that. We have standards now. So I think that's your second answer. I think the third one is, as far as window signs, I think Old Saybrook's regulation does include the regulation of window signs. I'm pretty sure, yes, that because I remember when we were doing the rewrite. And the other thing, by the way, that I'm almost sure Old Saybrook has, is that signs aren't just things with letters on them. Signs are the golden arches. the red roof. And it's very easy to sort of get people. I remember when, was it Hardee's? I forget. I think it was when Burger King came to Glastonbury. They wanted the red roof, and I was on the commission at the time, and I said, acting very dumb, well, why do you want a red? Why red? Why a red roof? Oh, because that's how people know that it's a Burger King, the red roof. Oh, I said, oh, so that's how it tells people it's a burger. Yes, it tells people it's a burger. Thank you. It's now a sign. Because your regulation defines architectural features that identify the building as a sign and count toward their square footage. So the fact that window signs count toward square footage means that the applicant has to be aware they only have so many square feet to play with. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank
And
you.
I'll just add one other thing. I was here one night, Bob will remember this. Whatever that gas station convenience store is, kind of across from Sleepy's, Chris had issued a cease and desist because they put up a sign with the price of milk.
Mercury now.
Mercury, okay. And I was there, just happened to be there that night, and the owner was saying, people need to know the price of milk, that's one of our big selling points. And I said, wait, you don't understand. The commission isn't saying that you can't display the price of milk. In fact, you can display the price of every single product that you sell. Oh, the guy was thrilled. I said, but you only get X square feet to do it. So like every merchant, you have to decide what is the message I need to get across to the public and how is my best way to do it. If you want to put up a sign that lists in little tiny type all kinds of things, go right ahead, but nobody can read it. So decide what is the message you need the public to hear.
Understood. Thank you.
One question, Mark,
Sure.
that often comes up is a lot of times we have buildings where we have existing sign bans and existing signs, and a lot of times the landlords are really not very receptive, or the tenant, or sometimes whoever is applying, well, it's an existing building. And sometimes they're not a special exception. It's just a sign permit. Is there any strategies to help the boards, or it's too much money, or I don't want to do that? Do you have any, any tips on how
Sure.
board members can handle that?
One thing is, the more uses you have in a special permit, the better, but you do have some jurisdiction under site plan as well. First thing is, and I can't emphasize this enough, never let anyone bring in a plan without the signs. They always wanted to play divide and conquer. That is the oldest trick in the book. They bring you the building and you say, well, where's your sign package? And by the way, your regulation requires them to submit signs as part of every application. Oh, well, we don't know who the tenants are yet. We don't get to regulate content anyway. So we're not asking you who the tenant is. We don't care who the tenant is. Show us the square footage, the location, and the method of illumination. That's what our authority is over. And they don't want to do that because they want to get the building approved and then come back for this. Oh, well, the tenant says that we don't care what the tenant thinks. You bring that in. If it's not been, and sometimes you need to send a message. You turn things down a few times and people realize that you're serious. And Saybrook has been good about that, by the way. You've been tough. You have said no. And people know that you mean it. Again, it's just fresh in my mind because it just was over. The Dollar General in New Hartford, they had to say no twice. They had to accept a court. I think the applicant thought that once they filed the court appeal, we'd run terrified. I've been a lawyer for a long time. I am not afraid of court appeals. And I don't lose them very often either. So I'm not worried about that. Home Depot, as Bob remembers, Home Depot appealed your denial. It was purely for leverage. We met with them. We told them what we wanted. They didn't want to do it. They dropped their appeal. The appeal, they could never have won that appeal, and they knew it.
I have a question. You've talked about denying 14 times on something. So we have this problem that we sometimes run into where we know we can't approve the application that night because it's not even meeting all of the criteria. Information is missing. It doesn't meet the regulations. But we end up with like an hour of discussion on suggestions of improvements, which I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, it's like, we'd love to give feedback, but we'd also love to just say, no, this is what we want, come back. We're not, you're paying your architect, like, we're not here to do your design work for you. So when you have those situations in Glastonbury, do you engage in like collaborative design with the applicant before you deny them, or do you just deny them?
It depends on whether, I mean, you know, if you've done this long enough, you know whether they're really looking for guidance or whether they're just, you know, trying to wear you down. One of the reasons why applicants do that, bring in these woefully incomplete and non-compliant regulation proposals, is they want to co-opt you into designing it for them. That's exactly what they want. And what they'll do is, if you say to them, well, could you make that brick? Could you make that cedar shake? Could you make, they'll bring you back something that's still ugly, but that complies with what you said. And they'll say, well, that's what you said you wanted,
Right.
right? So it's, you're right, it's hard to know when they're just playing that game. Certainly, I mean, and not just Glastonbury.
And they wear you down, because
they-
by the time
and
you
that's what they
talked
wanna
about
do.
one
They
little
want-
part of
they
it with
wanna
them
wear
for
you
so
down.
long.
They want to wear you down.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would say what building it was, when we went through that here at Old Saybrook and a building not so long ago, that Chris and I were talking about it at dinner, where they basically just came back and back and back and back and back until it finally got approved. That was the one, Bob, where they wouldn't give the square footage of the sign until the final night. They kept trying to hide the square footage of the sign because it turned out it was not in compliance. And I had asked for the square footage, hearing after hearing after hearing, and review memo after review memo. And they consistently would not give us the dimensions of the sign. And then the last night, it turned out it was in violation of your regulations. And they had known it all along.
Right.
Right, now that's, when you get something like that, it's time to just say no. I will tell you something that happened a number of years ago now in Westbrook that I thought was instructive. They were, the planning commission, they have, like you, they have separate commissions. The planning commission was getting a large number of woefully incomplete subdivision applications. Usually from the same engineers, by the way. And they would have hearing after hearing after hearing, and the commission was getting tired of it. And so they adopted a new policy. The town planner would do a punch list. This is what's missing or non-compliant with this application. They opened the public hearing. They entered the list into the public hearing record. The applicant would say, oh yeah, you're right. We'll get that for you. We'll correct that. The commission said, that's great. Public hearing closed, denied, is incomplete and non-compliant. Denied. Start over. Start your clock over, pay another application fee. Right? Because what they
Like
want.
instead of continuing it.
Exactly. If you feel that somebody is just really being dishonest with you about that, the word gets around really fast. You know, when you deny something like, and I told you the story about the McDonald's and the Burger King, you know, really they want a level playing field. And as long as everybody has to go through the same process, they'll accept it. But sometimes if you feel you're just being gamed, you just have to say no, just deny it. And because that's what happened with this Dollar General in New Hartford, they just kept turning it down. And the CVS, by the way, we didn't have an architecture review board then, we just created one. So it was a subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I was on that subcommittee. And basically, so it wasn't a denial that you could find in 7 minutes. It was the subcommittee saying, if you bring this in, it's probably going to get denied. You can bring it if you want. You can pay your fee, you can have your public hearing. It's probably going to get denied, and it would have, because the members of the subcommittee consist of the chairman, the vice chairman, and me. So you know, they knew they were going down. But it's too bad. Sometimes you just have to be tough. They'll always say, well, we don't know what you want. Your design reviews section and these regulations are outstanding. They're among the best in the state. They include photos. They're very detailed. They have great standards. Anybody who walks in and says, we don't know what you want, they're just lying. You know what you want.
And sometimes lately, I've been wondering if that's actually causing part of our problem, because like, if they were maybe bulleted or less, people would actually read them. It's like nobody even, you know, we have like a lot of applicants who it's like, oh, I read the whole thing, but I didn't get that far into it. So just ignore that.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, so, sorry. I mean, this-
Sorry, too
like,
bad for you. Okay.
In Dollar General, their first application in New Hartford complied with none of our architectural design guidelines at that time, none. And I made a list of them as counsel to the commission. And they denied as non-compliant. And I asked in the public hearing, did you read the design guidelines? Did you see them? Oh, yes. Well, then why are you in such gross violation?
Right.
So it's sometimes, like I say, the word gets around.
Okay, I have one more. Sorry, I'm like asking all the questions.
No, that's great.
So what if
I'm sure
they're
everyone else is
not,
thinking that.
what if they're not in gross violation, but nobody on the board wants to recommend approval? Because that happens to us a lot.
Yeah.
Like
As an architecture review.
on architectural
Yes.
review
Yes.
board.
Um,
So we review aesthetics. So
Yes.
they could be not in gross violation of like, the size could be the size of a sign, or the lighting could be allowable in that district, but somehow with what's presented, the complete picture, you know, either maybe the lighting shouldn't have been allowed in that district because it doesn't really work there, but it is, and they need it, but nobody's happy with it aesthetically. Are you just out of luck or what?
No, I think first thing is,
Yeah,
first
the
thing is you can
subjective part,
first thing is you can recommend something else. Yeah,
right?
you can say that it's recommended.
But when they
zoning
say
commission.
like, well, we can do this, we're allowed to do this.
They're only allowed to do it if the zoning commission approves it.
Okay.
You know, I always tell people, no is a complete sentence.
Can we say that it doesn't sorry, Chris. Can we say that it doesn't aesthetically fit?
Yeah,
Yes,
it doesn't.
Or to like, we can
yeah.
push
this-
back with that?
Yes, this, can you get, and it's hard to do this in the abstract, but I'd love to see an example sometime. But, I mean, because your design guidelines should give you the ammunition. I mean, your design guidelines talk about.
Okay, no,
compatibility.
because like, it does sort of come down to content, like sometimes it's a really like garish logo that like, the
Well,
sign is
content-
like a lit up
content we
logo, you can't do anything about it.
Content we can't do. So.
But
we
you
don't
can't
like the
even say
logo.
like, we don't want it to be your logo, we want it to be your name. Like, no, we don't think that it should be a paw print
Yeah. that
on
we
the
can't
sign, you can't do anything about
do.
that.
We can't
Okay,
do
what's
anything
another
with
one that
content.
we've had
Yeah,
where
again,
it's
you
not
could,
like
you could
content?
recommend it to them as something that
Right,
they should
but
consider.
nothing.
What I was,
But you don't think we can change our reg, you wouldn't say we should recommend our regs, oh, you're saying it's illegal to
we
change
can't,
our
we
regs
have
to
no
do
authority
that?
over content of a sign.
Yeah,
So the
It's
content,
First Amendment, right?
right, you can say to the applicant, we think you'd be better off doing this,
right.
but no, we can't regulate the content of the sign.
We had one recently where we felt like it was unsafe.
And they did it
They did
anyways.
what they wanted anyway.
I know exactly the one
Yeah.
you mean.
We were talking
Oh, okay.
earlier. I know exactly. what-
Yeah, I just felt like, well, at least
It
when they
makes
get sued,
sense.
it's not
Right.
our fault.
Somebody's injured and they pull in there
Right.
thinking they. can
Right,
get
like if
treated.
somebody dies in
And
that
then they
parking
just
lot one
drop.
day.
Well, no, but I tell you, we see that, we say that a lot with signs that are,
Misleading.
that are, well, that are illegible. There's a beauty salon in Glastonbury and I can't tell you the name of it. Because
You can't.
it's a big sign, by the way. It's this elaborate script,
Yeah.
you know, and I just don't know what it
Some of those.
says.
We got some of those.
I just I don't know what it says, and it's like you want to shake people and say, come on, and they'll say, well, you know, I need a big sign so people can read it, use block letters. You know, such and such salon, that's why I showed it a sign in Germany, you know, the Dustfrisur, you know, it doesn't even have words on it. You know what it is, it's a
Right.
beauty salon, you know?
But that's what we tell them is your sign should tell us what your business is, and sometimes.
Well, and like, I guess that sign I showed you from Norwich, where they're all listed. You know, some years ago, when I was still town planner in Glastonbury, we had a local real estate brokerage named Barnett Baldwin. They were very reputable and well established. And they merged with Gallery of Homes, so it became Barnett Baldwin Gallery of Homes. And then they merged with Dollar Dry Dock. It became Barnett Baldwin Gallery of Homes, Dollar Dry Dock. And they came in, they wanted a larger sign. Because they said, you know, we don't have room in the square footage to fit Barnett Bowman, Gallery of Homes, Dollar Dry Dock. And the chairman of the commission said, you can put the whole phone book in there. You know, call yourselves Barnett Bowman, call yourselves Gallery of Homes, call yourselves whatever you want. But don't come in here because you want this huge, long name and say we need more square footage of sign.
So
What
then
does you
they,
want the public to know?
then they apply for a variance, because their name is so long, it must be a hardship.
Must be, yes.
Right.
And then what? And then what happens when they come back to you?
Well, if they come back to us with a variance in hand,
Yes.
then it's more difficult to deny it, but it can be
I
denied.
bet it can. That's what I was getting to. A variance allows the zoning commission to approve something it could not otherwise approve, but it does not mandate that you approve anything. The ZBA cannot take away your jurisdiction over, yeah, I know, it's good. You have to wave at it, so the light goes on. The ZBA can't take away your authority over site plans and special permits. This is what I told about the Toyota dealership in Westbrook. I told the zoning commission there, they've gotten a variance from the entire design review chapter. But, and that allows you to approve something that doesn't comply, but it doesn't mandate that you do. You can still review it. You can see what the result was, but anyway. But yeah, that's like, I mean, really, I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it's worth it. Word gets around, you know, and if you know, they would never bring in a Steiner McDonald's in Avon or Simsbury. They wouldn't even bring it in because they know it's just a waste of time and money, right? People know what the towns want. They know what you're after. And sometimes you just have to, you know, say no, come back, start again. And like I say, I mean, site plan's a little tougher, but special permit, there's really no way you can lose on appeal. You have very high level of discretion with special permit. And even site plan. If you go through those design standards carefully, you can always find something that's really not in compliance. When I was a town planner, I would get this a lot, by the way, the question you were asking before. I would get this where the architect would bring it in and I'd say it's awful. I'd say, well, what do you want me to change about it? And say, well, you know, this is, I look at this, at that. So you bring it back, okay? And you done what I said, but it was still ugly. And well, I did what you said. So what I started doing to this one architect is I would say, you're not in compliance, I'm recommending denial. So well, what is it? It's not, you read the regulation.
Right.
I'm not your secretary. You read the regulation, you figure it out. And when he, you know, began to bluster about it, I said, you made me do this. This is your fault. You know, you tried to get out of me this stuff, and then you still bring it, and you knew exactly what I meant. So now I'm not playing that game anymore. You want to submit this? Denied. It'll be denied, and you start again, and we'll see how you do. And sometimes, you know, sometimes these guys just aren't nice, you know, and you can't be the chump. And like I said, I'm like, in the developers that I represent, you know, I represent good developers, but you know, part of what I do for my developer clients is to say to them, don't submit that.
Mhm.
That is, I know this town. That is not gonna fly. So you need to, here's some things you need to do that has to change. You're wasting your money paying me because that will be denied in this town.
And
And
we get-
sometimes they'll say, yeah, we want to apply anyway.
and we get
Answer is
consultants,
Right.
and I mean, they'll go through and they'll tell the applicant, they'll tell, you know, their client over and over again. And they come back in with the same thing, and what they're doing is, they're looking for the board to say no, the consultant, because the client won't listen.
Right.
I mean, I have an application coming soon, and, you know, client won't do it. I agree with you, but client won't do it. So they said, well, this is the only way they're gonna figure it out, is if they go to the board and the board says no. And I think a lot of times between the different boards and commissions, we end up in a situation where, well, the architecture review board told me to do that. They didn't tell me to do that, or Chris said to do that, this or that. And they kind of play a little bit of a game depending on the applicant. not all of them, but it happens where I can give someone a list, and I think I just sent one of the chairmen in this meeting a list, a very long list of things I asked an applicant for over and over and over again, and they still bring in the incomplete application. I can't reject the application.
Sure.
I can point out the faults of the application, and then the board goes, well, this is missing this information. I can only ask so much, and it goes to the board, and the boards end up getting frustrated because
Worn
you're
out.
repeating the
Worn
same
out.
thing, and they get it, like they're gonna get a different answer.
Right.
And really, the only solution to that is a
Denial.
is just a denial, and you want to go to court, you want to spend a year in court, go right ahead. Maybe you'll win, but time is money,
Right.
and these, their time, and they learn, they figure it out. I remember again at the Dollar General in New Hartford, you know, after it was approved 3-2 finally. And I know the attorney for the applicant. I said, you know, if you brought that in the beginning, you'd be under construction.
Right.
You know, you wasted months and months playing this game. But, you know, word gets out. Don't try that. Don't try that. It's not going to go anywhere.
But I'm surprised that an application can come into the land use office, and if it hasn't fulfilled, for example, the punch list of items, that application in fact can advance to a commission hearing. I mean, that
Yes.
doesn't,
The zoning officer can't deny a site plan or special permit. All she can do is do the punch list. And like I said, and what they were doing in Westbrook for a while until the lesson was just one hearing open, punch list received, denied. And by the way, that's important with subdivisions and site plans because both of them are automatically approved after 65 days without a vote. Right, so your time limit, and they can give you another 65, but you don't want that clock running. And so for planning, they were just saying, because what was happening is, you know, the clock is running on the commission and stuff is dribbling in, you know, and you have to get it to the town engineer for review or other people for review. And meanwhile, the clock is running toward automatic approval. And the commission was always being pushed and their consultants were being pushed. They say, we're not doing this anymore. It's incomplete, non-compliant. First night, one strike, you're out, denied.
And I can, of one application, that half of the people in this room have looked at that has been denied, and they come back and they continue with the same punch list, no matter how often you repeat yourself, you write it in a punch list, you write it in a memo, you say it over and over. You go through and you say, well, 2 years ago, I asked you to do these 10 things for these sections of the regulations, and they don't do it. And as the CEO, I can't reject the applications. I can guide people. I could say, I think your sign is too big. I think, you know, the architecture review board may have an issue with XYZ about this application, or the zoning commission. But if it comes in, and I mean, I had a site plan come in recently on poster board with highlight. There's a lot of background work that we do in the office before. I mean, Sarah helps to screen, I help to screen, and sometimes, and I'll just say, this is the best I can get for you. And it's,
So legally, the zoning officer can't deny it or reject it, but that's the same from a legal perspective as saying, I haven't accepted it. It's the same.
The state statute mandates the date, what's called the date of receipt.
Yeah,
Okay, so whether it's, no matter how incomplete it is,
if you receive
the
it.
clock is running.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that term. What's the term? The
Date
state-
of receipt,
What?
the date of receipt of an
Date of
application, okay?
receipt.
State law is that an application is received at the next regularly scheduled meeting following submission to the office, or 35 days, whichever is less. So if they submit that application, it's a live bomb.
So she has as much time as little time, that much time to get it as close to correct before she has to give it to us.
Yes, it's received, the clock is
Yeah.
running. Now, by the way, special permits have no automatic approval, only site plan and subdivision.
In Old Saybrook, the BP Irving Mercury Cumberland Farms gas station near
Mhm.
Saybrook Home,
Mhm.
that was submitted a long time ago as a site plan review. And the zoning enforcement officer at that time, Chester Sklodowski, did not act in the time frame specified, and it got automatically approved. The zoning commission never got to see the site plan for review.
We're very good about tracking in the office, so you'll see that,
How many
especially
pages
on
live?
special exception, planning commission. You'll see NLT no later than close hearing, because we're keeping track in the background to coach you as to what is with ARB, if it's opening the, or, report by the first night of the public hearing, I mean, you can continue. Because usually it's within the 65
Right.
days, but a lot of times I think the boards feel bad about continuing applicants because it takes them too easy. Oh, no, I have to go to the next step. I have to go to planning. I have to go to zoning. I need to get this now. And it's very common for applicants to come in. I had an engineer come in today representing a potential client who said, oh, well, they're gonna open in 2 weeks. I said, oh, well, that's nice. They're not getting an appointment with the fire marshal to the state. They're not getting this to, they just start pulling out emails. The engineer goes, but they said, and they said, well, I think they're just coming to each person involved in a review to get a permit and saying, oh, I'm opening in 2 weeks. Everyone else is gonna let me open, but you, and it's really not the case. And, or they ask, applicants ask the same answer over and over to different departments, like someone's gonna say yes. And it's
Or they're gonna
tricky.
claim that someone said yes.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you do about that? When you have that in a hearing, if you think somebody's not telling you the truth, what do you do about that?
Oh, I could be very not nice. That happened.
Katie's like, I can do that.
Well, that actually happened. It's
That's why I'm
public
here.
record, so I can tell you this happened with the CVS here in Old Saybrook. CVS brought in a decidedly inferior design. The engineer representing the applicant insisted the design was the best they had. It was their top of the line design.
He said it was the only one they were currently
The
building.
only one we're building, okay, and then he made the fatal error. He said, this same design is pending. The commission member said, why can't you do the CVS like the one on Main Street, Glastonbury? You saw the picture of. And no, we can't do it. And he said, and this same design is pending right now in Glastonbury and is moving through the process with no difficulties at all.
We've heard that before.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the next morning, I went into the Glastonbury planning office and I pulled the pending Glastonbury application, and it was nothing like
What you
what they
saying
were
here.
proposing here. In fact, the building you see there today is the one that was moving through the process in Glastonbury, okay? So I got copies of that. I sent it to the commission. I made it perfectly clear that this guy just flat out lied to the commission. I didn't put it that way, of course. I did call the CVS's attorney first, and I said, I just want you to know what I found. And we said, I told these guys, if they say it's the best they can do, it better be the best they can do, so have at 'em. And that's why that CVS is there, the one that you see
Right.
now, is because we caught the guy just, and then he tries to, well, I meant it was the same site plan. I said, shall I have this transcribed for you? I can have it transcribed. That's not what you said. We were talking architecture. We were talking the appearance of the building, and you said the same building was moving through the process just fine in Glastonbury, and that's not true. It's not the same design at all. I mean, they need to learn. They need to learn. And I mean, Bob has seen me do this. So has Chris. Anyway,
Mhm.
You know, you have to, sometimes you have to just tear these people apart.
How do we, like, so like,
In
we
the
wouldn't
moment
be
when
able-
we're
yeah,
not
like, in
sure.
the moment, how do we?
Yeah, because they'll sometimes say like, well, zoning said that they said they were fine
They'll
with this.
really,
And
yeah,
we're like,
they'll
it's
really
not in the
back us
minutes.
into a corner.
I don't
Well,
know.
then we don't agree with you. You know, I mean, it's.
And just continue it to another, like, have them come back?
This is for architecture review board.
Yeah,
Like when
You
you,
can have
like
them
you want to
come
buy
back,
the
or you
time
can
to
just
fact
say,
check
or you
them.
could just,
Yeah.
you could just enumerate what's wrong with the design, what's
Yeah.
non-compliant about it.
okay,
Send your recommendation to denial, and here's why. Here's what doesn't comply with the design guidelines, chapter and verse, page this, page that. This is what doesn't comply. We recommend denial, and hopefully zoning commission will accept that recommendation and deny. And like I say, after this happens a few times,
Yeah.
they'll just stop doing it. They'll realize that they
Mhm.
just can't get away with this.
And there's a lot of times when I go back to the tape because I hear different stories. I'll see a commission member who says, well, this is what happened, you weren't at the meeting, and the applicant has a totally different spin. Oh, no, you didn't require us to do that. So there's a lot of fact checking, and I get it. Sometimes you have long meetings, things are going on, you're presenting. You know, maybe you forget details. Sometimes I think applicants intentionally try to forget certain details.
Yeah.
Or remember things the way that they want to. And I think as long as we keep, working together and fact checking.
we had an applicant back us into a corner one time, and it was so bad, and he actually literally said that we were a joke, and that he didn't even need, or remember that? That was a couple of
Wow.
years ago, and he didn't even need our approval for it, and it was like so
So what?
minimizing
what was
of
the
what we
result of
do.
that, though? So did you recommend denial of his application?
Which one? was talking? The one by TJ's. What's his name? Remember, like Carl had to come to the next meeting.
Yeah, the one who does everything.
I don't remember his name, but he
I know his
literally
name.
called us, said that we were
Yeah.
a joke.
He did lose his mind a little bit.
Oh, so,
And
I mean-
eventually he came back with the information. No,
Yeah.
we continued him. We said, come back with this, this, and this. And he did
Well,
come
you were
back.
nice
with
then. You were nicer than he
it.
deserved.
We were nice.
very.
Yeah,
Because,
we should- Yeah.
I don't know if we were nice, I think we were just
I probably
professional.
would have said, joke, okay, we're,
Just hold it
you're finished, then sit down, you're done. And another thing, by the way, that I have done, I don't know how long your agendas are, but when someone gets heated that way and
Yeah.
rude, as the counsel to the commission, what I'll often do is say, clearly so-and-so is very excited, very,
Animated.
Animated moment.
Yeah.
May I recommend, Mr. Chairman, that this item be tabled till the end of the agenda, so he has time to collect his thoughts and think about how to say this presentation. And then we'll go
Yeah.
through the minutes and the CEO's report and the plan of development, and we'll just go through everything while he sits there for an hour or so. And then maybe when he returns, he'll be calmer and more courteous.
We've had a couple of those.
Yeah, that should never be, your volunteers, you
Right.
should never be subjected to that.
I mean, I think probably everybody here has experienced that, especially like through COVID. I think people have gotten just a little more amped on everything. I find. I mean, I feel like
Yeah, at least I feel like our applicants.
our applicants are a little bit more unreasonable than they used to
No,
be.
it's,
You're pretty tough.
Yeah, although I will say nice thing about the virtual meetings I've found is that hearings tend to be more focused.
Mhm.
You don't get this play to the crowd so much with virtual meetings. But yeah, I mean, especially engineers, lawyers, architects, people who should know better. I tend to be very hard on those people when they do that. Bob knows this, I never allow anyone to interrupt the chairman. I'll shut it right down. Don't ever interrupt the chairman.
You've done that.
Yeah, a couple of
I
times.
tried.
Meryl was really good at that.
Meryl,
I have to
oh,
say, she
Meryl
like the
was,
best
she would be
for
like,
it.
mute.
Yeah.
She was the
And
best.
that's essentially virtual, because you can't, you just
Yeah.
cut them off.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, they try to intimidate you, they try to back you away,
Yeah.
they try to do all those things. But they get denied a couple times. And that behavior will cease. You know, their client is paying them to get them an approval and quickly.
Mhm.
And when that sort of attitude earns a quick decision, like a denial, they're not happy with that architect or engineer or whoever it may be.
A lot of times it's the applicant and not the consultant.
In which case the applicant needs to learn the lesson.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, there was a CVS, when CVS came to Hebron, they brought in their typical rotten building initiative, of course, and the town planner was very good. He was, this isn't gonna fly, this is gonna do this. And CVS was, you know, oh, this is what we do, blah, 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 blah. And finally, their own attorney in front of the town planner turned to CVS's rep and said, look, they're not asking you to do anything you haven't done before. You know, why this game? Why this
Right.
show? You know, you're not, you know what you can do. Let's just cut to the chase and do it. You know, and that was, by the way, that was the same attorney who got the CVS approved in Glastonbury and the Walgreens, both Walgreens. So he knew what they built. He knew. I don't have a picture of the McDonald's in Avon, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Just a beautiful Route 44. It's simply beautiful. And the CVS is nice on Route 44. They can do it, you know, especially the chain guy. It's tougher with the local, you know, the local
Yeah.
guy, I understand. But that's, by the way, that's why this slideshow. I want you to see that there are inexpensive ways to create good design. Landscaping alone can take something kind of so-so, kind of mediocre and make it nice. And that's why I like that industrial building here in Old Saybrook, some of those other industrial buildings. They're metal buildings, right? But they use nice forms, they have a barn feeling or something that gives it some compatibility. It's a matter of a good architect, even for the little guy. You know, it's a good designer who can come up with something that's. I represented a Ford dealership out in Lisbon, and Lisbon has fairly high standards for design. We went to a guy named John Matthews, who's in Madison, who's really good. John Matthews did that Stop and Shop in Glastonbury, the hidden loading dock, and Ford Motor Company mandated a particular floor plan. We could not deviate from that floor plan. And John Matthews did this absolutely gorgeous Ford dealership for Lisbon. Unfortunately, it was right about the time when Ford was closing down dealerships, right and left. It never got built. Absolutely beautiful. Again, it was Ford Motor Company's design, but he just changed the exterior in some really nice ways. It's really just a beautiful building. So it can be done. It was still an engineered building.
I didn't know.
Is anybody online?
Fact before this.
Virtual, I should say.
It's all right.
Do not say that, okay?
So it's fair enough to wrestle with a small chain. We had a bank recently who, replaced signs. And they met the style of the building, but their landmark sign, their monument sign was large screen TV. And, they insisted that every other one was the same way. And Emily had a stand her ground on that one. And it did come in with something that was acceptable, but I know there are other chains like Dunkin' Donuts has monochromatic signs, small signs.
Sure, they can do it.
Anywhere you go in the country, you'll see variations of it. They insist that they won't, but it's fair enough to hold their feet to the fire when it comes to our standards.
Well, one of the things that I often do when a chain applicant comes in is I'll just go online and, Ace Hardware Store, Dunkin' Donuts, even without, my wife kids me, she's watching, by the way. My wife kids me that most people go on vacation and take pictures of pretty things, and I take pictures of gas stations, and street lights, and parking lots, and things like that. But thanks to Google Earth, you can pull up images online of these other buildings and see they've done better someplace else.
Yeah, although the problem, I think, we can do that when we know what it's gonna be, but these bigger applications where they don't have their, that are developer applications and they don't even know who it's gonna be yet. Or
But
they're
then they can't
pretending
say
they don't
either.
know who they're.
But then they can't say.
It has
you,
to look a certain way.
Right, they can't say, well, this is how the
So-and-so does
tenant
it.
wants it to be.
Yeah,
You know, we can't tell you who it is. It's orange and white and there's a picture of a donut on the sign. But we can't tell you who it is. Of course you know who it is. But yeah, you have to, if they're gonna pull that, then the answer is fine, then you conform it to Old Saybrook's character.
right.
You know, look around the buildings here. And a lot of people use the term historic buildings. I like to use historic and iconic. Some buildings aren't really historic, and yet they do represent the image of this community to visitors and residents. I mean, that Chamber of Commerce building is a classic example. That's not old, but it is spectacular. When you drive into town, that's, well, except for Sleepy's, that's like.
Yeah,
one of
except the
first
Burger
things-
King, right?
That's one of the first things that you see is that really, and that's the head of Main Street. So that sets the tone for everything else. And to the extent that you can, and like, that's why I have that never too late sequence. You know, buildings can be refaced. You know, they can, you can, even old mistakes can be fixed. Other thoughts, questions? All right, well, thank you for sitting still through all those slides. You do have this recorded, so if you want to see those more, and I can give you this if you want the actual original.
Okay,
Chris?
that would be.
Yeah, I can give you the original, because we have it at the office. I can just download it to another USB if I need it. Actually, I will need it in a few weeks, but I can just download it. Because I know I did go through this kind of quick, but and some of them illustrate multiple things too. Again, just I had to read a lot of pictures out. It's already like 250 pictures. Well, thank you for coming. Thank
you.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, we got something out of it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.